Hi everybody, welcome back to Mando Lessons. Today we're going to start diving into the world of jazz, and I think a good place to start is to sort of go back to thinking about chords and scales for a little bit. There's a lesson I posted about how to build chords. You can look that up, it's on mandolessons.com under the Mandolin Basics section. So if you're not familiar with the general how to build major and minor chords, which is just the root or the first degree of a scale, and then the third degree and fifth degree. If you're not familiar with that concept, go watch the first chord video on mandolessons.com. If that's old news to you, then you're ready for this lesson. Where we're going to dive into some four-note chords and sort of see what it means when you see chords that say major 7, minor 7, all that sort of thing. So let's use our good old G chord again as our example chord. It's a good chord on the mandolin, and it's a good starting off point. So in the key of G, in a G chord, we have the root G, third, B, fifth, D. Now, when you see, let's take a major 7 chord as our first example. What you're really doing is, if it's a major 7 chord, you've got a major third, so it's a major chord, except it's got a fourth note in there. You have the root, the third, and the fifth, and then you also need the 7th degree of the scale, which if you count up, you go, on a G scale you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so there's your 7. That's an F sharp. Now you need somewhere to put that F sharp to make it a major 7 chord. So in this example, we have a G chord, we have a G, D, B, and G. Now we've got 2 G's in this chord, so we can turn one of them into an F sharp. And that way we'll have our root, and our third, and our fifth, and our major 7. Now, an F sharp is one note below a G, so a G is a good scale degree to work with. You can just take a G down a half step and you get an F sharp, a major 7. Now, you can't take your lowest G down a half step because, well, then you'd have an F sharp in the bass and you're already in an open string, so it's not an option. But you've got this G on the E string, and you can easily take that down a half step to an F sharp. So we can keep G in the bass, open D string, B on the A string, and then F sharp on the E string, and we get this chord. It's a little shimmery, it's got a kind of a smooth sound to it. And then G, a regular G chord. And sort of, as you learn these chords, really put an ear to them and sort of hear how you can correlate that sound in your head, so that after a while someone can play this chord. Maybe you're not looking at their fingers and you just hear that chord and you go, oh, it's got that great, what is that note? Oh, it's the major 7. And just sort of like, yeah, that sounds like a major 7. And that'll be a lot. It's really helpful to sort of get familiar with these chords. And hear that note. It's sort of the distinctive note in the chord. So getting used to that sound is really helpful. And so I guess what you can do to find any chord that you see, if you see any chord that you're unfamiliar with, like somebody says, now how about a dominant 7 chord, just a regular 7th chord like you see a blues 7. What that's got in it is it's got a flat 7. So here's our major 7 chord. It's got the F sharp. And now this chord, the dominant 7, has all the same notes, except instead of a major 7, it's got a flat 7 in it. So our scale would sound like this. G, A, B, C, D, E. There's F sharp, there's the regular note in our scale, major 7. You're going to take that down a half step, F natural, which is a flat 7. So here's your 7th degree of a scale. There's your flat 7th degree. That's the F on the D string. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that gives us that kind of blues sound that you're probably familiar with hearing. So we can use the same example. There's our G major scale. There's our G major 7 scale. It's got the G, the B, the D, and the F sharp. And now to make it a dominant 7, that F sharp becomes F natural. So we can just take that down another half step, and we get that bluesy dominant 7 sound. And then major 7. Sorry, that's just a major chord. Major 7. Dominant 7. Etc. So far we have our major 7, which is root, 3, 5, and major 7, just your regular 7th degree of a scale. And now we have your dominant 7 as well, which is 1st degree of the scale, or root, 3rd, 5th, and then flat 7, or called the dominant 7 chord. So those are 2 examples. Now we have a major 7 chord. A minor 7 chord. So like your regular G minor chord, you have root, flat 3. So instead of major 3, B, we have a B flat now. Root, flat 3, 5, and then root again. And that turns into this shape. Root, D is a 5, B flat, and then G. So there's your regular major minor G minor chord. No 7ths in that. It's just root, 5, flat 3, root. In a minor 7 chord, we have a flat 7 as well. So we have the flat 7 from our G major chord, is that F natural. So we combine that with the B flat, and we get, and there's a minor 7 G chord, G minor 7. So those are the sort of the big 3 7 chords that you work with. So there's your regular G major. Take that G down to an F sharp, and there's the 7th degree of a G major scale. Take it down another half step, and we have an F natural, which gives us, with the major 3rd, the dominant 7. It's the blues sound. And then take the B down to a B flat for a minor 7 chord, and it stays at the F for the 7th. And now, there's lots of other options. You can have a minor chord with a major 7, which is a pretty crunchy sound. It's pretty dissonant. It's sometimes called a minor major chord, but the idea is that it's a G minor, but it's got instead of having a G minor 7, which has that flat 7, we have an F sharp, which is the raised 7, or not raised, but the natural 7. I guess it's the natural 7 of a G major chord, but it's the raised 7 of a G minor chord. So we get that G, D, B flat is the 3rd, F sharp is the major 7 of the chord. It's a crunchy sound, but every crunchy chord if it's sort of used in the right spot, can become really a nice kind of passing chord that adds some really nice sounds to your music. So again, we've got those, but that's kind of a rare chord, so don't worry too much about that one. We've got that major 7, flat 7, minor 7. The flat 7 is also called the dominant 7, a dominant 7 chord, and that's, you'll just see G with the 7 next to it. Whereas major 7 is either a little triangle, G little triangle 7, or G MAJ sometimes 7, or G capital M 7. Whereas a G minor 7 is either a G minus sign 7, or G lowercase m 7, or G min 7. There's a lot of different ways you can read it, or that people write it, but they're all the same chord. There's sort of 3 different ways to write each one. So those are your 3. You got your major 7, minor 7, and dominant 7, and that's in the key of G. And this, you just use the same idea for any other key you're working in. So if you're working in the key of C, you're using that G, that C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You're taking the 1, C, the 3, C, D, E, and the 5, 3, 4, 5, C, E, G, E, C. And then you're adding any sort of 7 you need. So if you're looking for a C major 7, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's a bunch of different places to put these. I'm just telling you the notes. So we have C, E, G, and B. So those are your 4 notes. And on the mandolin, you only have 4 strings, so a lot of times you kind of have to switch things around a lot to get a good voicing. If you want all 4 notes, you don't always need all 4 notes, but that's a topic for a different lesson. So let's take that. Here's a C major 7 you can use. It's the same idea as the G major 7, just everything's moved up to the 5th fret. And you've got C, and then G on the 5th fret, and then E on the 7th fret of the A string, and then you've got your B on the 7th fret of the E string. And then you can do the same thing. There's your 7, so if you want a dominant 7 chord, bring it down a half step, keep the major 3rd, you get a C dominant 7 chord. If you want a minor, you take your 3rd, your E, take it down a half step, you get C minor. If you want that to be a minor 7 chord, you have the flat 3 and the flat 7. And there's 3 ways to play your 3 C major, minor, and dominant 7 chords. And you'll start to recognize patterns. Like, now that you know this is a C major 7, you can say, well, I want a B major 7. So it's just going to be everything down a half step. You can just move these shapes all around. That's a great thing about the mandolin. So these are all 4 notes using every note. We're not leaving any notes out. There are other places to put these shapes. You can rearrange them. Like you could have, let's see, C, and then E on your D string. This is still let's go for a C major 7 chord. We've got C, E, and then we can have the B on the A string, and then the G on the E string. And we get, that's a C major 7. It's the same sound. Sounds a little different, but it's the same set of notes, just in different places, different octaves. And if you want that, maybe a C dominant 7. Let's see, I don't often use these shapes, but we've got your C, your 1, 3, and 5 is all the same. and now you just want that that 7 to go down to a flat 7, and then we get C, E, B flat, G. I'm having a little trouble with my fingers here. So that's going to be the same sound as. So there's different places. Once you know that a C major 7 chord has a C, an E, a G, and a B in it, then you just find those notes, find shapes that work for you on the instrument, and you can go to town and just try to find them all and put them in different combinations, and it really adds variety if you have a couple C major 7 chords under your belt. Maybe you can play one up, if maybe the guitar player is playing down low, you can play way up high, get a good sound out of that, or if the guitar player is up high, you play a lower chord and kind of play off what each other are doing. And so really what you're doing is you're looking for these first 3 chords, the major 7, dominant 7, and minor 7 chords, just sort of looking for what notes you need. So just, it's good practice. It's kind of it's music theory at this point. It's sort of the mental side of music, but then putting the practicality into the instrument and finding the notes. But just getting comfortable with saying, okay, a G, let's have a G minor 7. What does that have? It's got a 1, a flat 3, a 5, and a flat 7. 1 is G, flat 3 is B flat, 5 is D, flat 7 is F, natural. And then finding those notes, maybe we'll have B flat in the bass, and then F, and then D, and then a G. So this is an interesting voicing, but technically that is a G minor 7. It sounds not very much like a G minor 7 because the B flat's in the bass, so it kind of turns into a B flat chord. It's actually a B flat 6, but we'll leave that for another lesson as well. The chords start overlapping once you get 4 notes in them, because depending on what notes in the bass, you end up getting different sounds. But for now, just sort of you'll find some chords that sound more like the sound you're going for. Like here's G minor 7. It sounds minor. It's got that G in the bass and the B flat. Whereas your B flat in the bass kind of sounds like a B flat chord. So you'll find some, and it's totally workable, especially if you have a guitar or a bassist playing a low G. Then as a mandolinist, you're kind of way up the register. You're playing some higher notes than what the rest of the band's playing. So maybe playing this B flat in the bass isn't a problem because you got a big low G somewhere else, sort of defining the chord as a G chord. But if it's just a mandolin, if you're just sort of playing some chords, it's probably going to be better to have either your root or your 5th in the bass rather than having your 3rd in the bass, just to give it a really defined sound of like, this is a G chord that I'm playing, not a B flat chord. Same notes, but having a B flat in the bass is really going to alter the sound. So maybe that's all for now. Again, the steps are learn your scales. All you really need to know for these first 3 chords is a major scale, and then you can sort of base what your chords are off that major scale. If you've got your major scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, then your major 7 chord is 1, 3, 5, 7, just your regular major 7, and then dominant 7 chord is 1, major 3, 5, flat 7, taking that F sharp down to the F, for example, in that G chord. And then your minor chord is 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. And that's about all there is to know. And then you just figure out what key it is. Maybe you want an A chord, so you say, well, the 1's an A, the major 3 is a C sharp, 5 is an E. Maybe you want a flat dominant 7 chord, so your flat 7 is a G, because you have a G sharp and an A scale. sharp, so dominant 7, flat is a 1, 5, 3, flat 7. And just sort of play around with the notes, find different shapes. It's really good. It helps you learn your scales. It'll help you be a more versatile instrumentalist. And so if you have any questions about this lesson, shoot me a question in the comments or something. Visit mandolessons.com and mostly just play around, learn your scales, learn some chord shapes, and after a while you stop having to think about where the 1 is, where the 5 is, where the 3 is, etc. And you just have shapes under your fingers. And you can combine those shapes into an infinite number of patterns for an infinite number of sounds. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you soon.